G'day guys, on the Canon EOS R7 I'm convinced the high frame rate mode, 100 frames per second or 120 frames per second depending on where you are, is better, more sharp than the 4K. So let's have a look. Now, I'm not a videophile, I don't know a whole lot about bits and bytes and rates and codecs and all that stuff. I just know what looks good when I film it and put it on a video. And I'm convinced that the high frame rate mode, 100 frames per second PAL or 120 frames per second NTSC region, looks better than the 4K. So as you can see, I shot down into the village and I took video in a number of video settings within the Canon EOS R7. If you want to see how they all look together, then skip to chapter 7 if you don't want to sit through all of this. But let's get started and have a look through the various modes. So the first one I did was 1080p, Full HD, 25 frames per second. And this mode looks okay, it's pretty good. It's 1080p, it is what it is. Nothing special, but nothing terrible. The next mode I tried was still Full HD, 1080p, 50 frames per second. Now I'm pretty sure that adjusting the frames per second isn't going to make much difference to the video results, but why not check it out? Again, it looks pretty similar to me. I know it's difficult on YouTube for you to appreciate the difference because of all sorts of factors, which I'm not an expert about, but I'm sure that it all depends on what resolution your screen is. I have exported this at 4K, upscaled I guess, to give it the best quality possible on YouTube. The next one we're going to check out is 4K, the standard 4K IPB, 25 frames per second. And again, this looks okay. What I know about 4K, it's 4 times as big as a 1080p, which means you can punch in post, that sort of thing, but theoretically it should give you more detail, right? And the great thing about the R7 is that there's no crop. It uses the full width of the sensor, and it looks nice. I actually think it's a little soft. The next mode I tried was the 4K IPB, 50 frames per second. Again, the same applies for the 1080p. I'm not sure that changing the frame rate will actually make much of a difference to the results, but here it is for us to check out anyway. And yeah, it's pretty good. It's not bad. I'll be happy with that. It's 4K. Apparently, it's still a little soft, and you'll soon see, compared to the 4K fine, what I'm talking about here. So yeah, 4K 50 frames per second. Nice, it's video. It's video. Good. I know I'm not really diving into much detail here, but it's on the screen for you to see. The next mode I tried was the 4K fine, and of course, you can only set that at the 25 frames per second, or if you're in an NTSC region, maybe 30 frames per second. And I like the 4K fine, it's definitely more detailed than the standard 4K IPB. Definitely. This looks more detailed, it looks more fine. Stands to reason. 25 frames or 30 frames per second, so you don't have the latitude to slow it down to 2 times if you wish to. Okay, and now here's where we get into the high frame rate mode. This is the mode which I'm convinced is more sharp than the 4K. It's more vibrant. I really love the footage that comes out of the high frame rate, 100 frames per second or 120 frames per second in the NTSC region. Have a look at this. This is it. And I've sped it up 8 times, 4 times, 4 times. I sped it up 400% to get us to that standard motion. But I will slow it down here so you can see what it looks like. 8 times, 4 times slower than the standard 25 frames per second. Okay, and now here's what you've all been waiting for, chapter 7, as I said at the beginning. This is all of them together. Well, not all of them. It's the 1080p and 25 frames per second, 1080p and 100 frames per second in the high frame rate mode, 4K 50 frames per second in the 4K fine. Now have a look at this. The 1080p in the high frame rate mode looks just almost as sharp as a 4K fine. It certainly looks sharper and more vibrant than the 4K 50 frames per second. So here we have a camera where the 1080p in the high frame rate mode looks better than the 4K mode in the same camera. To me, it looks better. What do you reckon? From this video, which is not scientific, there's no technical aspects about it at all, It's just what it looks like to me. But what do you reckon? Let me know in the comments below, from this 4 multi-view image here, which one looks the best to you? Do you see a correlation between the high frame rate 100 frames per second and the 4K fine? Does 100 frames per second high frame rate mode look sharper than the standard 4K? I'll be really interested in your thoughts, and thank you very much for watching this video. For what it was worth, it is what it is. Have an awesome day, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.